Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Mid-Career GPS podcast. I'm your host, John Nerrell. This is the show for mid-career professionals who feel stuck, undervalued, or unsure what's next, and know that doing more isn't the answer. Here, we focus on how you show up, how you make clearer decisions, build influence, and take control of your career. Let's get started. Oh, have I got an episode for you today? I have been waiting to do this episode because today's guest is someone I have known for almost as long as I've had my business. Now, we met through our local Chamber of Commerce, and today's guest was a guest way back in episode 10. So for reference, this is episode 352. Recently, Sarah White's mid-career GPS took an interesting turn, so much so that I invited her back on the podcast so she could share her story with you. See, Sarah decided to open a restaurant. Now, I will let her tell her story because that's what she's here to do. But what I want you to know is that Sarah White is the owner of Westover Taco, the first women's sports bar in Arlington, Virginia, and a longtime leader in Northern Virginia's restaurant community. Sarah is known for her hands-on approach to hospitality. She focuses on building welcoming neighborhood restaurants that support their communities and create opportunities for their teams. My friends, she is the definition of what it means to show up and why how we show up matters. So it is my pleasure to introduce you to Sarah White. Sarah White, my friend, welcome back to the podcast. How are you?
Oh, John, it's so great to talk to you again. I have missed you. I'm doing well. I hope you are.
I have missed you too, and I know life has just gotten crazy for both of us, and we've tried to connect and everything. And so when I saw your post about, getting some advertising and promoting your business and everything, more so than that, Sarah, it's your career story. Because what happened to you, I am sure has happened or is going to happen to a lot of our listeners, and you're just going to inspire them and share so much with them about what happened. So let's get right into it. We always talk about that mid-career moment. What was yours?
Okay, so I was really fortunate that I had already taken classes with you, that I had already talked this through. So when it happened to me, it wasn't an emergency so much as I had a plan and I was prepared. But I got a call January 23rd from one of my partners. We owned a restaurant together and I worked for their company for the last decade, running some of their other restaurants. And they said, by the way, we voted when you weren't in the meeting that we're going to sell the restaurant that you own, and we're going to remove you from employment at our other restaurants as well. So you need to get your resume out and find a job. So terrifying moment for just a second. But my first instinct was sell me the restaurant. Like just give this to me. I can take it over. I don't want my staff to lose their jobs. I don't want that insecurity for them. But also I have some ideas about our restaurant. There are some changes I'd like to make. And without having to vote by committee to do that, I could really make this go. So give me a couple days. Let me see what I can do. Let me call some banker friends and whatever. And they said, oh, yeah, that sounds great. I called the next morning and said, okay, I think I've got everything kind of lined up to start working this. And he said, oh, we went ahead and put it on the market. You're never going to get the money. It's not going to work. So
how does that happen?
I don't even know. It just, a lot of people right now in this economy, and I know so many people can relate to this because everybody's going through it right now. When you start having not enough in your household, not enough for your family, you start pulling in, right? You start taking care of yourself and saying, well, who can I cut out or what can I cut out that is costing me? And so everybody has to do that evaluation. And, they decided that my salary for what I did was no longer affordable. That it didn't make sense to continue that. And that's fine. Businesses have to make those decisions. But I was very, very hurt and shocked that they thought I couldn't pull it together and do it myself because in the end, I was able to. So obviously I
Sure.
could do it. And I had a lot more resources than I think anybody thought. Not money. I was not rich. I'm not rich, but people.
Yeah.
It's important to be people wealthy. It's important to have those resources that you can go to when you need them.
Sarah, I allude to this and I mentioned this in the introduction, but I had you on the podcast back in episode 10, right? 6 years ago when we were working together and we met each other through the Chamber of Commerce and such. And when we talked 6 years ago, we're talking right at the onset of the pandemic. And for someone like you who has a wealth of expertise in restaurant management and hospitality, we were having a much different conversation back then, right? We were talking about, we didn't really even know the magnitude of what was going to happen in 2020, all right, 2021, in keeping restaurants open and keeping staff paid and everything like that. And then I hear you say that here we are in the middle of 2026, and we're in an economy and time where everyone's thinking so much about, I don't have enough.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How how has that reality impacted your career and business decisions right now?
So, I don't think we've ever really relaxed. And we were fortunate. We met right before COVID. So, like,
Mhm.
we got to do all that fun stuff together.
We did,
Awesome.
yeah.
But,
Hmm.
at least we had family for that. Like, we had friends. We made a team, and there were a lot of us back then that were together. But, um, it's never really changed since COVID for restaurants. And I think that that's one thing and people are tired of hearing it. I totally get that. They're whining again. The restaurants don't have enough. Like, I get it. I would be over it too. But the bottom line is food prices haven't come down. As a matter of fact, they've gone up. There were floods and things last year that wiped out cattle. And so beef prices have been very, very high and remain so. When you have insecurities between can we shop from Mexico or Canada and what are the tariffs going to be, that adds another layer of insecurity and of prices potentially being higher. So it doesn't really stop. And then you've got you know, uh, the laws change constantly. And we just want to follow them, right? Like just like
Yeah.
COVID, we just want to keep everybody safe. We just want to follow them. But there's been a lot of movement in, what pay should be for employees because a lot of people see tipped wage. And for most states, it's $2.13 for tipped employees. That could be your Uber driver, DoorDash driver, that could be your bartender, like anybody who makes tips. What a lot of people don't understand is that one, you're required to still pay them minimum wage. So if minimum wage is $15 in your state, if they don't make that, you pay the difference. Like there's no way of getting out of minimum wage. But there's also the fact that they're making $40 an hour, $42 an hour generally. Like they wouldn't do this if it weren't for that, right? Like they like the income. Maybe less secure because you're relying on how busy you are this week, but generally, you've been at a restaurant for any amount of time. And so DC made some changes last year. They've been working on it for some time, but they've been trying to eliminate their tipped wage. They lost 100 restaurants last year. Like
Mm.
the change is not sustainable. Like you cannot just switch models overnight and think that that's going to work. And you also can't get employees to work for $15 an hour that are used to making 40. You're never going to get them. It's not going to happen. And that's a lot of the service problems out there right now, right? So I could go on and on about the different reasons that it's been so hard for restaurants, but these are just some of the few things that are very high level, like we're dealing with constantly to make these changes. And so you have to decide at some point, is this even worth it anymore, right? Like, do I still want to be in this business as hard as it's gotten? And the fact that it doesn't seem like it's going to get easier anytime soon.
Agreed. Yeah. And so, Sarah, you go from managing several restaurants, being being an employee, to now losing your job and now being a restaurant owner. And I'm curious if you could share with us a little bit about, was your mindset more of, I'm going to show them that they made the mistake, or was it, holy crap, what the hell did I just do?
Okay, so I'm going to say, first of all, it was absolutely both. Like, it was absolutely both. Part of me is like very competitive. You compete pro bowler, like
Yep.
competitive spirit. And so part of me is like, not only am I going to show them, but I stumbled into a new concept, and the concept has gotten a lot of backlash from a certain sect of people. I'm saying by a lot, it's 5 people that talk a lot. It's not 50 people. Um, but every time somebody is doubting that, I get that competition going, right? Like, oh, I'm going to show them how this is going. But when you start doing permits and you start seeing how complicated it is to not have a team doing this,
Mhm.
yeah, there are days that I sat down and went, what did I do? This is a nightmare. Like, how am I ever going to get this done by myself? And then a bartender didn't like the new concept and quit and took another bartender with him. And then oh God, like I have to bartend all day and I still need permits. And like, so it was very, very terrifying, I
Mhm.
would say, for the first 2 or 3 weeks. Now permits are good and now I'm relaxing a little bit, but
Yeah.
it was very scary.
We've talked before too about how anytime a job changes or you go into a new organization that you need time to get your legs underneath of you.
Yeah.
How long did you feel like, and it may still even be going on, I don't want to answer your question, but like
Yeah.
how long do you feel like it's taken for you to get your legs underneath of you with owning a restaurant?
And I will say that I feel like it's been stages, right? Like maybe my legs aren't completely under me now and we're running. But I will say that every time I get a new, something I didn't know how to do, let's just say that it was getting a zoning permit. I had no idea you needed a zoning permit. I don't know what that is. And so learning about that, figuring out how to do it, calling the wonderful people at the county that talked me through it, I felt a little stronger. Talking to, I have a great ABC agent and talking to him and working through it. My mom lives in the same town that he went to high school. So like, we had instant common ground, which put me a little bit at ease. And then he talked me through what I needed to do. There's just facts. You get, step A, B, C. And as we're working through that, you feel a little bit stronger. Getting the right team. I have amazing bartenders. Some have been with me since the beginning. And then we just added another full-time person this week, and she is solid, and we love her, and that makes you feel a little bit stronger. So it's a day by day process, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a learning process. Anything that you do that's going to be the way that it is. This might have been a much bigger scale, but it was just learning to take it day by day and say, we're going to tackle this tomorrow and not the next day. And some days I didn't get it done. Some days I went to bed at night thinking, wow, that day was crazier than I thought. And I didn't even make that phone call. But at the end of the day, as long as you keep pushing, I really believe that anything you want, anything that you're trying to get to, you can do. It's just maybe cutting it up in smaller bites.
Yeah. So, for the listeners, before we started recording, Sarah and I were talking, and I asked her, "Does she have a social media team?" And she said, "You're looking at it," and and so I'm so impressed because you're killing it on social media here in the Northern Virginia area. The restaurant is in Arlington, correct?
Correct.
Right, and it's Westover Taco, and your Instagram handle is Westover Taco with an underscore next to it, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So, all that being said, you opened the restaurant when?
I have had it now for it was 4 weeks on Monday.
Okay.
Um, since we changed the concept and I bought out my partners. It's technically been open for 2.5 years,
Okay.
but
So
it's
you
changed completely.
so you had an existing restaurant which you take over. What made you decide to turn it into a women's sports bar?
It's so funny. This is the question that I don't think people believe me when I answer. Is like, well, it wasn't an intention. It was I bought a restaurant, not expecting to, right? It came
Mhm.
out of nowhere. It just, hey, surprise, you're buying a restaurant today. And I was talking to a friend, a journalist, about doing a story and could she break the story that we were doing and all that for me. And she said, absolutely. She said, but what are you going to do now that it's yours? Like, what's your plan? And I said, I love women's sports. I watch a lot of women's sports. I'm a huge fan of the DC Divas and many other teams, but I work for the DC Divas. I'm the president of their boosters club, and I'm enamored with watching them play. And anyway, I said, we'll probably do more of that. I'm going to put up a few more TVs. There's some things in here on the walls that I don't care for that I'm going to take down so I have room for more TVs and we'll watch more women's sports here, I'm sure. And she said, "Oh, so like a women's sports bar." And I was like, "Oh, well, yeah, yeah, you could say that. We're going to focus on women's sports. Will I still play men's? Sure, absolutely. You ask for a TV, we'll change it for you. It's buttons on a remote. It's not that difficult." But, we've shown kids PGA, we've shown doggy agility challenges. I love watching that. But at the end of the day, we're going to focus on women's sports and our wonderful, super winning women's teams that we have here in the area. And so that's how it kind of came about. There was no like, "Oh, you know what would be really marketable? A women's sports bar." Like there was none of that. It was
Okay.
not a plan. And so, I didn't know if anybody else would love it, hate it, but I knew it's something that I wanted. I'm like Googling where I could watch different games around here for women, and there was no place.
Mhm.
And so I was excited to create something that I know I would want. And I didn't think it was that big of a, I really need to make this clear. I did not think that this was that big of a change.
Mhm.
We've always shown the women's games. We've always shown the men's games. We've always had sports on the TVs. Like, it's really not, to me, in my head, a big thing. But so many people latched onto it and are like, "No, the difference is I know I can watch a women's game at your restaurant." Whereas
Mhm.
every other restaurant, I might go and ask for a TV to be changed to a women's game, and maybe they do it, maybe they don't. But this is someplace I know that I can come and people are going to be watching the game I want to watch, and they're going to be cheering with me, and we're going to be yelling at the TV, and like it's just a little bit different than a regular sports bar. And so, they kind of got me on board of that it is a big change, but definitely didn't feel like it was.
You and I previously we talked so much about your story, right?
Yeah.
And we talked so much about this on the podcast as well, right? It's own your story, be able to tell it confidently and competently. And I just appreciate so much your authenticity and your realness in sharing with us how all of this just kind of evolves, right? Life happens and circumstances change and you roll with it and you figure it out with a level of intention that is truly you.
Well, it's very funny, what somebody called me visionary the other day, and I just like I doubled over laughing. Like
Mhm.
you got to understand, this was not a vision. This was not it
Yeah.
was just a what I love. There are two things in life that I absolutely love. And that is feeding people, being a part of your
Yeah.
family, bringing food to you. When you've had a bad day, it cheers you up. When you've had a great day, we celebrate together. When you want to be around other people and get out of your house for a little bit and meet somebody new, come sit at my bar. I'm going to introduce you to the regulars. Like, there's this, I love that. And that's what got me into the restaurant industry. I was going to college when I joined the restaurant industry and paying for college, and I just loved it. I quit school. Like, I love what I do.
Yeah.
And then women's sports that I only found about 4 years ago. But what, if you watch them play, oh my goodness, watching men play football, they're tough. I'm not going to take anything away from that. They are tough. But these women are doing this while having a full-time job.
Yeah.
They're doing this while being mothers. They're, and just watching that intensity and that true love for what they do. And I think that that's what I resonate with it. Like I do something that I truly, truly love, and so do they. And I
Yeah.
love bringing that together in one place.
Well, and I think that's I can't even find the right word because challenge isn't it, but you hit the nail on the head. Like when it comes to the majority of women's sports, as much as they play full time as professional athletes, the money isn't there for a lot of them. And so there needs to be another job that is kind of sustaining them and everything. And what comes to mind for me is that with my previous podcast, which was called Show Up 2020, I interviewed a woman named Liz Culkin. Liz Culkin is someone I know through bowling. She is a U.S. Women's Open champion. So we're talking one of the major events on the women's tour.
Hmm.
And her primary job was she runs the produce department at her local supermarket.
That's it right there. Yep.
Yeah. And it's there's so many stories that are like that get to be exposed or told in a way because of how we all get to bond around sport and
Yes.
what that particularly looks like.
Well, and there's a few infuriating things about that. A lot of people have said to me, well, they're not professional. They're not getting paid for some of the sports. And it's like, well, what do you think happened when men started baseball teams?
Right.
Do you think that they just got paid today because they showed up? That didn't happen.
Yeah.
Women are making the same path and forging forward, and they're getting there. And, the other point that I like to make is if you could go back now and buy some of those sports things that they signed and such, what are they worth today?
Yeah.
Right? Like those pioneers really, changed the world forever.
Mhm.
And these women are doing the same thing. They are changing the world and they are showing little girls that they can do anything in the world they want to do when they grow up. I love
Yes.
nothing more than seeing moms and dads holding their little girls, walking around and reading the Caitlin Clark sign I have on the wall with one of her sayings.
Mhm.
And there's several different ones around and just reading them to them and showing their little girls that they can do anything because I didn't have that.
Right.
When I was young and I was playing sports, my mom was like, well, don't get attached to it.
Mhm.
You're gonna be a secretary somewhere, so just get used to that.
Mhm.
And so it's so cool today that, I think about it. My mom couldn't get her own checking account when she wanted to divorce my dad.
Yeah.
Like she couldn't do that. She couldn't get credit on her own back in the day. And knowing that not only did I do that, but I bought a restaurant by myself. There's no cosigner on it.
Yeah.
I was able to take out a loan by myself with writing up, here's my plan for the restaurant, here's my career. Somebody looked at it and
Mhm.
said, she's worth the risk. And like, that is so cool just to know that the world has changed that much. And, I'm 44 years old.
Mhm.
That's not a lot of time.
No.
It goes super quickly. And to know that my nieces, I have two nieces, and to know that they're going to grow up and just be able to do anything in the world that they want to do is just so there's not a word. We keep
Right.
saying that, but there's not words for what is happening right now. And it's not just my bar. It's not just this industry or women's sports. It is just across the world that things are changing. AI is changing our lives every day, but watching the things that women can do and the fact that women's sports are going to be a full-time job one day, and that's
Yeah.
coming real fast.
Mhm.
And just seeing the difference.
And so well said. And as much as we say and we acknowledge how much progress and advancement has been made, there still is a lot to close the gap.
Oh yeah.
Right. And
Yep.
so to have that kind of momentum and that kind of support, I think that's so important. I appreciate you sharing the story about your mom too, because it's so easy for us to forget that there was a time not too long ago when women couldn't get those kind of things because that's the way the world was at that point. And thank God it's different. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I mean, just so many things are changing, right? Like social causes. It was not as easy for people when we were younger, and I like that now. When I was talking to my nieces, it was, you know, I was very open with them, and I know that my family wasn't with me, and I have a
Mhm.
husband, just to say that. But you know, if I had not been, that social issue would have been an issue, and to
Yeah.
talk to my nieces and be like, hey, do you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend? Like, are you, and make them know that it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to be who you are, no matter who that is. And whether that's, your personal life, your career, like I love the way the world is going, that it's okay to be you. I
Yeah.
mean, that's American, right? That is
Right.
American.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Um, Sarah, indulge me for a minute because I want to go back to something you said earlier about being people rich.
Yes.
Okay. So the episode before you, I interviewed a friend of mine, Rich Lucy, who had recently retired. And we had a part in the conversation where he talked about how being an introvert, he doesn't like networking. He knows how to do it, but he doesn't like networking. And I think this is such a contrast with you because having known you and known you from the Chamber of Commerce and seeing you work a room and being so well connected, one of the things people who listen to this show will often come to for some guidance is networking tips or how they can be better at networking And so, for you who truly values the idea of being people rich and have seen this firsthand in opening and growing your restaurant as well as your career, what networking advice would you give someone listening to today?
I gotta say, this is my favorite question because I feel like I have very good advice on this one. I don't feel like I'm excellent at a lot of things, but this one right here I nailed because I was also shy. I was also like, you wouldn't know it to meet me now, right? Like you would have no idea that I was ever quiet or afraid. And when I do news interviews, I'm still terrified, but you can't really see it. But one thing I learned a long time ago is when you're an introvert, when you're shy or whatever, you probably have a couple of people that you're close to, right?
Mhm.
And you feel more comfortable when you're with them. When you go out in public with them, when you go, if you need to go to a networking event, you take them with you as kind of a security thing. And I just expanded that. I just went, okay, wait a minute. If I knew everybody in the room, I wouldn't have to be afraid anymore. Then I'm bringing all of my friends with me because I know everyone. And so, one, meet the shyest person in the room, the person that's a wallflower, the person because they want to meet someone, they're terrified also. So you automatically have a bond right there, and they're going to really appreciate that. But two, they might have been here for longer, and wallflowers hear everything. They really absorb what's going on around them because they're worried about it, right? So they're listening with intent. They're listening to hear what's going on, and so they're going to know who you need to meet, what they do, know all the gossip in the room, whatever it happens to be. But they're going to be able to help you with that. So first thing, go and meet them first, and now you've got an ally, you've got a buddy in the room, and then just start um, targeting people that you know that you need to speak to, right? People that, I'm a sports bar owner, so I'm looking for places that might need catering, that might need, maybe I'm not looking for POS systems, so I'm going to put them lower on the list. Prioritize. You don't have to talk to everybody in the room. And that's one thing that I think we force ourselves to try to do, and you don't. Like, prioritize the people that you need or that might need you or that you could work together with. And as you keep meeting those people and meeting more people, you're going to just be less afraid. Like, I know it worked for me anyway, and I hope that it works for others. But, walking into a place where you know 5 people is easier. Walking into a place where you know 10 people is even better. Like, just keep meeting those people because it will get easier.
Yeah, so good. Thank you.
Mhm.
What's next for Westover Taco?
Oh, so we have a new podcast being recorded actually right now there. A couple of ladies, one is currently on the DC Divas and one formerly, are doing a women's sports podcast from there, doing some video. They're going to be doing some on the streets kind of things. What would you do for a Westover taco? They're going to have you doing some exercises and different things just kind of for fun. We have a few more interviews coming up with some media. But basically, my goal in life is to sponsor all of the girls' teams here.
Okay.
We need a pipeline of girls coming up to be professional athletes, right? You can't just decide to do it. Some people do, but it's difficult. So let's start them young. Let's find out what sports they love and let's get them getting good at it, just like we do our boys. And so I'm really excited to be sponsoring the local high school girls teams, and we want to keep expanding that.
So cool. Very, very good. Awesome. Well, Sarah, you know how this works. When we go to wrap up the show, I always ask my guests, what advice would you give someone to build their mid-career GPS?
Absolutely. And I love this question. You've asked me a million times, and I don't think I've ever given the same same answer twice. Um, but definitely having a plan long before you need it.
Mm.
Like I didn't know I was going to need it in January, and if you hadn't helped me with the tools that I needed early, and I hadn't put the resources in place with other friends that I needed early, it would have been a lot tougher. So even if you don't think you're going to change careers, it's still important to have that plan because you never know what tomorrow brings.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, of course.
All right, my friend, please share with us all the great things. Where can people find you, visit you, come to the restaurant? The mic's yours.
Absolutely. So Westover Taco Women's Sports Bar in North Arlington. It's on Washington Boulevard. So come over. There's plenty of free open parking behind the building, which you don't find in Arlington. So
Mm-mm.
that's exciting. Like you said earlier, at Westover Taco _ is going to be our Instagram where I post pretty much daily what sports we're going to have on and that sort of thing. We have an updated website coming out this week. So you're going to see our new menu and a lot of things that we have coming up. We're doing some events with the teams. The Mystics are coming over for a Meet the Team event. DC Divas are coming over for a Meet the Team, DC Shadows. So follow us. Make sure to keep up with when that is. You can join our mailing list right on our website, and we look forward to seeing everyone.
I will make sure that is all in the show notes. Sarah White, I am so proud of you. I am so glad we connected all those years ago and had a chance to work together. Keep up the phenomenal work and more importantly, keep showing up.
Thank you, John. It was so nice to see you again.
Same here. All right. So, my friends, look, as we go to wrap up, here's what I want you to remember. Something happened to Sarah, something unexpected. One day, she feels like she's got her job. The next minute, she doesn't. But she had a plan. And she had a plan, and that plan was rooted in how she showed up. Not everything works out perfectly. Not everything is always clean and easy and stuff. Sometimes it gets a little messy, but she's people rich. And I think that's one of the biggest things I want you to take away today is however big, large, small, intimate, whatever your network is, leverage the heck out of them. Be as good to them, if not better, as they are to you. It will help you in the long run in your career. So until next time, my friends, remember this. You will build your mid-career GPS 1 mile or 1 step at a time, and how you show up matters. Make it a great rest of your day. If you enjoyed this episode, don't keep it to yourself. Kindly share it with someone who needs it. And if you're tired of feeling stuck, overlooked, or underutilized in your career, go to my website, johnnarrell.com, to get started. There you'll find free resources, ways to work with me, and details about the Show Up Leadership Lab, my signature membership for mid-career professionals who want to lead better, get noticed, and elevate their career. All the links are in the show notes. You can grab what you need right there. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you're getting value from the show, take 30 seconds to leave a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. Remember, how you show up matters, and I'll see you next time.